What we're going to do in this video is to give you a little overview of the watershed, floodplains, and control structures that we're going to talk about in the following presentation. And we're going to use Google Earth to do that. So what we'll do, we're going to zoom in on these features which I've marked up on this in this system here so we can easily find what we're going to talk about here. And we're going to start up north. We're going to talk about Bahia Catawba to get everybody familiar with what's happening with Bahia Catawba, which impacts us down here in the Lafayette area. This whole area south of Alexandria is actually the Bahia Catawba watershed. And the Bahia Catawba is down here in St. Landry Parish, and it connects to us, which we'll get into some detail about how it connects to the Vermilion River and the Bayou Teche. So to give you some idea of the Bahia Catawba watershed, all this area between this red line, which roughly parallels I-49 on the west side, and this red line over here, which is the West Atchafalaya Spillway Levee, which you may know as the Henderson Levee, all this area in here drains, eventually ends up into Bahia Catawba. And a lot of that water comes down to us in Lafayette, and some of it goes down Bayou Teche. Okay, so with that, we'll talk about a couple other control structures we have, and we'll start with the Teche Vermilion pumping station, okay, which is part of the Teche Vermilion freshwater project. And we'll zoom in right here, and the purpose of this system here, which was installed in the early 80s, is to pump fresh water out of the Atchafalaya River right here into this canal, which connects to the Bahia Catawba over on the other side of the spillway, the West Atchafalaya Spillway, to provide fresh water into the Teche Vermilion system to keep the system flushed out. A tremendously beneficial project to keep our river with some fresh water in the river, our river and the bayou with fresh water. We'll show you a picture of the pumping station here. Okay, that's what it looks like, and there's a series of pumps. And another thing to note here is they only run this thing when they need to run it. It doesn't run all the time. It runs whenever there's not sufficient rainfall in the watershed to provide fresh water down Bayou Teche and the Vermilion River. Okay, so how does it get to once it gets in the Bahia Catawba on this end, how does it get to us? We'll talk about that in a second here. It actually comes in the Bar Pit Canal, and this is Bahia Catawba right here in Port Barre, and the Bayou Teche headwaters are connected to Bahia Catawba and right in the middle of town in Port Barre. And we'll zoom in on that. Okay, so that's your Bayou Teche headwaters. You can see the connection right here. This is Bahia Catawba, and this is Bayou Teche. And I might note here, Bahia Catawba is a very large stream, much larger than the Vermilion River, and when it runs through Lafayette, so it can handle a significant amount of water. Okay, so right here, when they pump into Bahia Catawba, the water's coming back around this way, and it goes down Bayou Teche, and it actually comes to us by the Bayou Teche, Bayou Fuselier connection in Arnoldville, Louisiana. Okay, in Arnoldville, the headwaters of the Vermilion River are actually called Bayou Fuselier, Bayou Vermilion, and it's right in the middle, again, right in the middle of town. A similar thing. It's where the river comes off of the Bayou Teche, right in the middle of town. So when the Teche Vermilion pumps, or if we get a flood from the north, a lot of times the water comes down this connection right here down to us. Okay, so let's go back to some of the control structures that are in play here that we're going to be talking about making some changes to. Okay, when they built the levee system after the Great Flood of 27, They completed the West Chapelizod Spillway levee around 1935, and this is the levee right here. Okay, and they basically blocked Biakatabla right here, but they opened it up to the Bar Pit Canal to allow Biakatabla to drain to the south, eventually down to Lake Foss Point. Okay, well, after there was several floods in the decade of the 40s. They put this control structure in 57 to allow fresh water to come into the basin. This is the West Chapelizod Spillway on the right side, and also provide some level of, I guess, flood management. When they put the Teche Vermilion freshwater project in, they built some weirs, and they put a levee right here, and they closed off the Bar Pit Canal, and they put a small gate right there. We're gonna examine and look at that here in just a minute. You can see from the aerial photograph that these gates are much smaller than the channel in Biakatabla right here, maybe 10 to 15% of the channel capacity. So the first thing we'll take a look at is the gates. We have a picture of the gates right here. Okay, so that's what it looks like, and the Corps of Engineers control these gates. And again, they're relatively small. We'll look at the gate right here on the Bar Pit Canal. And here we go. Here's the gate, and this is Biakatabla you're looking at on the top, and this is the Bar Pit Canal on the bottom. And you can see it's one small gate, very small pipe that goes through that levee right there. And to show you a little bit about the typical elevations we're dealing with here, if you note down here, there's an elevation reading. If I put the mouse over the bayou at 16 foot, and I put the mouse over the Bar Pit Canal, it's 1 foot. So you have typically a 15-foot head. And the reason the Biakatabla is held that high is so it can push water back around to Teche and the Vermilion. Okay. There's a couple other control structures here. There's some weirs. There's two of them, one here and one here. They are around 16-foot elevation. We'll give you a picture of the weir right here. And what happens with the weir is that, again, you'll notice that the bayou is about 16 feet, and on this side of the weir, it's like 3 feet. When the water gets too high in Biakatabla, it'll overflow the weir. It eventually joins the Bar Pit Canal further down south and allows an escape hatch for the water. During the flood of 16, what happened at the weirs was it overflowed significantly. Here's a picture of the weir. It's a concrete structure, non-adjustable. There's one of our guys walking on it. This is Biakatabla on this side, and then the overflow goes this way. And down here is a picture of Harrell, where we found trash in the trees, probably 10 feet over the weir. You can see the weir down here, and he's standing up on the bank, and he's reaching up. Trash on the trees 10 feet above the weir. So the water came over the weir at least 10 feet above the weir during the flood of 16. Tremendous volume of water was going down the Bar Pit Canal, but not enough. Okay, and that what's caused us some problems. Okay, so essentially by holding Biakatabla at 16 foot, it's basically all your retention in there is pretty well gone. Okay, so we're going to take a look now at some of the floodplains, and the first one we're going to look at here is with Cypress Island, Lake Martin, Cypress Island Swamp, Lake Martin, and you folks may know it as mostly as the Lake Martin area. Again, if you look at the elevation here is approximately 6 feet in a lot of this area right here. Let's see if we can find it where it's at. There's some low areas in here. It's relatively low, and generally whenever the river flows backwards, this is the area that floods, that fills up with water. Okay. And then the only way out is back through the Vermilion River. And it fills up when the river runs backwards, but it also fills up from the water from the north too. Okay. All right. And then we're going to talk about the Keystone Lock and Dam, and we're going to be addressing that in the and our presentation to follow. And we're going to zoom in on that, and we'll talk a little bit about that and tell you a little history on that. It's on the Bayou Teche, and it's a facility that's operated by the Corps of Engineers. It basically holds the water level on the north side of the dam in Bayou Teche at I think it's 10 feet a minimum to allow for navigation. It is not designed for flood control. It is only designed for navigation, even though maybe it should have been sacrificed during the flood of 16 to allow more water to go down to Teche. And what happens when the water goes down to Teche? It ends up in Lake Foss Point, which we're going to look at next. It's over here by Lowerville. Okay. And Lake Foss Point is at an elevation of approximately 1 foot above sea level, 1 or 2 feet above sea level. And we'll show you some pictures of Lake Foss Point. Okay, and it's a big low area. And the key thing to know about this when we get into the presentation is that it's on the outside of our side of the West Atchafalaya Spillway or Henderson Levee. Okay, and the levee was put on this side over here by the Corps to allow this to be a floodplain for the outside the levee area. Okay, and with that, what we're going to do is we're going to go into the story about what we think the problems are and what we think the solutions are.